So today I'm back. We're going to be doing the last part of the Malfoy Manor. This is the third and final part. So you'll see the screenshots at the very end of this as well. Right now I'm not really doing anything super interesting in the video. We're just adding in some lights. And like I said, I enjoyed using the chandelier a lot because I liked the effect that it gave along with that kind of yellowy glow. And those lights, like the wall lights, look really nice and kind of dreary as well. So I like to put those up around the house in addition. So in this part, well, my camera veered off for just a second there, sorry about that. In this part, we're going to be furnishing the second floor, which is primarily like bedrooms and bathrooms. And then we're also going to be doing all the elf rooms, the house elf rooms, which is technically the third floor. And then we're also going to be doing the basement, and that contains like the kitchen and the cellar and that kind of thing. And then right now, what we're doing is we are furnishing the like master bedroom, and you'll see in just a second, but I really decided to make this like as plain and kind of dreary as I possibly could, because I mean in my personal life, you know, in my room I like it to be nice and comfy and light and kind of welcoming, you know. But I kind of feel like in the Malfoy's bedroom, it would be just the most dreary place ever with kind of very little love, you know? So I tried to make it just as like blank and boring as I possibly could, while staying in the theme of like gray and greens and that kind of thing. And then now we have moved into the bedroom for Draco Malfoy, and I tried to make this kind of a childish room, because if you remember in one of the previous parts, I said, again, spoiler alert, I said that the house was going to be made to base off of the Malfoy Manor before the Death Eaters take over, so it's not run down or super crowded or anything like that. So I figured that would have been kind of Malfoy more as a child, so maybe Malfoy in like the first and second books / movies, or even before that. So you'll see like some toys and some stuffed animals and stuff scattered throughout the room. And even though there are toys and stuff, I tried to keep that like as minimal as possible and tried to keep it still pretty drab and green as well. And then, as you saw just a second ago, of course, Draco Malfoy gets his own bathroom. Of course he would. And now we are moving on to kind of the guest bedrooms, and kind of something I think you'll see if you look in like old castle builds is that the bedrooms typically don't ever have just like a single double bed or a single bed. They often have like several. I don't know, just from like movies and castles and that kind of thing. So I tried to do that here. So as you see, there's 3 single beds. So I guess if Malfoy had a friend sleep over, they could sleep in there, or like if family came to visit or whatever, which again, they're the Malfoys. I can't really imagine that would be happening that often, but it's there if they ever decide that they want to be friendly to other people. So anyway, we're about to move on to the second guest bedroom in just a moment. And this one, I did decide to have just a single double bed, if that makes sense, just one double bed. And one thing I really struggled with in this build specifically was the extreme lack of beds, because there's only, like 20 beds, and only a certain amount of them, maybe half, are double beds, and then only a certain amount of them have the right color palette, and then only a certain amount of them are the right style. So it was really a struggle to figure out which beds to use, because I didn't want to continue to use the same beds over and over again. And then right there, when we were staring at the windows for just a second, I was trying to make sure that all the windows were at the same height. So that's why we were staring at it. And then, sorry, I just got a text, so just ignore that. And then we're just continuing with the guest bedroom right now. I really liked those dressers because they look kind of like grand, but also old and kind of beaten down. So I felt like they really fit into the Malfoy kind of aesthetic. I'm assuming if you're here, it means that you've watched the first and second parts already. If you haven't, you should go check those out first, or this video probably won't make that much sense to you. But I mentioned it in the first or the second part, I can't remember exactly, that when I furnish, I like to kind of do like a base furnishing, if that makes sense, where I'll kind of just put the important items, like the kitchen stuff and the bedrooms and all that kind of stuff. And then later I'll go and put kind of decorations, just because I feel like it makes it easier to decorate if I already know everything that's there. So I did do that in this build. So if it looks really kind of just drab, and it's already supposed to look drab, but if it just looks blank, that's why. I'll fill it in just a moment. Don't worry about that. So anyway, right now we are furnishing this kind of living room, I guess, but it's not really a living room. It's just kind of a little lounge, like a little second floor lounge where you could kind of just sit there and look out the window, discuss magical things. I don't know, whatever the Malfoys do. In all honesty, and like if this was a real house, it would probably be super echoey because all of the floors and the walls are all stone, and it's really open regarding like the first and second story. So in real life, that would probably be really annoying, you know, just because it would be so loud all the time. But, you know, it's The Sims and they don't have echoes, so obviously you don't have to worry about that in the game. And then, again, I had said this in the previous parts, I believe, that you know how in the books they mention that there's all these portraits of pale-faced people, which is obviously supposed to represent the Malfoys. They mention that a lot, and so in this, in the house, I tried to put up a bunch of, like, old-looking portraits just because I thought that it would represent that, even though most of them aren't pale-faced because we only have so many, of course. But that's what the intention was with those huge portraits in that kind of hallway area. And then now we're going through and just kind of adding some rugs. I don't know exactly how many rugs they would actually have in the Malfoy Manor because they're not really that keen on like warmth, obviously. But for the build, I thought that would be kind of cool, just to have some rugs around the place. So now, like I said before, we're going to go through and decorate a little bit. So I'm adding some lights and, of course, some curtains is what they're called. They're called curtains. We're adding some of those around the place just to kind of make sure that the Malfoys can close their windows or close their curtains and block out some of the light, because I imagine dark and brooding Malfoy would sit in the dark by himself a lot because he's Malfoy. Feel free to disagree, but that's just what I imagine Malfoy's daily life would be like. So yeah, we're just adding in some more stuff to fill up the place a little bit more. I do like that it's fairly empty, so I tried not to clutter it up too much, but it was kind of nice just to add like a little bit of stuff around the house, if that makes any sense. And then here I'm adding in like a little vanity. I thought that was cool and it fit the style as well. And let's see, we already did all the bathrooms. So yeah, we're just adding in some stuff. So while we're just kind of doing some boring little furnishing, I thought that I would touch on something I saw the other day. The other day I saw this, I think it was a Tumblr post, talking about Harry Potter, and it said that Malfoy deserved a hero arch much more than Snape did. And a hero arch obviously just means that towards the end of the book or the end of the movie that this character is seen as a hero rather than kind of a villain, you know? That Malfoy deserved that much more than Snape did because Snape was a grown man. He was an adult, you know, and Snape abused children while he was their teacher, you know. Not physically, obviously, but just mental abuse, you know. And I totally agree. I don't hate Snape. I think Snape is really interesting, and I think some of the stuff he did was really great. But, you know, he was an adult, and I totally agree with that. I think he was a grown person, and he decided to treat people terribly, while Malfoy was just a child. And obviously, it's never okay to treat somebody badly, but I feel like being a jerk when you're 11 years old is much different than being a jerk when you're 40 years old. Because when you're 11, you know, you have room to grow and kind of change, but when you're 40, that's who you are. You know, I don't know. I feel like a child can grow out of that kind of stuff, an adult can't. So I definitely agree that Malfoy deserved much more of a hero arch than Snape did. Because obviously, if you've read the books or seen the movies, Snape dies a really heroic death, you know. Harry finds out all that cool, not cool, but just interesting backstory stuff about him, and he dies in this really heroic manner, and you really see him kind of as a good guy towards the end, you know, and, or at least I think that's the way that you were intended to see it, you know. Some people might disagree, but I definitely agree that that Malfoy deserved much more of a hero arc than Snape did. But obviously some people might disagree, so if you do disagree, just leave it in the comments below. And then just a second ago, you might have seen I was just kind of adding some stuff into that room. I kind of really like the idea of just having like an empty corridor in their house, because I feel like that's what the Malfoys would do. They have so much darn space that they can just like have empty rooms, you know. I mean, personally in my house, you know, like every single room is filled practically to the brim with stuff because we don't really live in that big of a house. But I feel like the Malfoys would live in such a huge house and have so much money and stuff that they can just afford to just like have an empty room. So I don't know. People may disagree, that's fine. If you want to furnish it with something totally different, go ahead. You can always change gallery stuff whenever you want. Once you download it, you can put whatever in the world you want to put in there. That's just something that I thought would be kind of cool and something that I thought would be appropriate. And then again, I did mention this in the previous part, I can't remember, that I liked adding in those little wall cracks and the spider webs because it's such a huge house. Of course there would be wall cracks and spider webs. But anyway, we are moving down to the basement, and on this first, like the basement level that's closest to the house, in that one there's like the kitchen for the house elves, you know, where the house elves would make the Malfoys dinner or lunch or breakfast, I guess, or whatever they want because they're house elves. And then the second room is, if you've read the books or seen the movies, you'll know that there's that one scene in the Deathly Hallows where Harry and I think Luna's there and Ollivander and all these people are kind of locked in a cellar, you know, for questioning and stuff. So that's what that room is supposed to be. It's like a little cellar that's totally bare and empty, and that's where they're locked in. So you'll see me kind of making it look a little bit more like that later on. So yeah, we're about to start with the kitchen, and the kitchen was kind of cool because I tried to make it super old-fashioned, you know, because in the Harry Potter world, for whatever reason, there's like no modern technology. So the stove is really old-looking, and the kitchen is as well. And, oh, one other thing that I thought was kind of interesting about this kitchen is, again, if you've ever read the Harry Potter books or watched the movies, oh, actually they wouldn't have mentioned this in the movies, this was just in the books. When they go to visit the house elves at Hogwarts, they mention that there's long tables in the center, you know, rather than like counters on the outside like a normal kitchen, that there's long tables in the center where the house elves work, and I thought that that was kind of a cool idea, so that's what I tried to emulate here. So obviously there aren't counters kind of circulating the outside rim of the room, there's just kind of that long counter in the center, so that would be kind of cool, and I think maybe it would make their work easier if it's just kind of like a long counter. So yeah, that's why I decided to furnish it like that. And now we're moving on to the cellar. And if you look up Malfoy Manor cellar, you will see what I was basing this off of. In the movie, they kind of have these long arches almost. It's just really empty with like lots of arches. If you look it up, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I tried to emulate that with the columns because I felt like it kind of gave that effect. And obviously you can't go into those little rooms, they're just kind of there to separate a little bit. So yeah, it's just like an empty room, it's just meant to emulate something from the movie. And I just put one light in there because, again, in the books / the movies, there's like this big thing about Ron having his light thing. I can't remember what it's called, the little cigarette lighter from Dumbledore. I can't remember what it's called, but you know, he like turns it on and all that. So I just put one light in there just so that would make sense, like with the storyline, if that makes any sense. So now we are moving on to the next level of the basement, and what this is supposed to represent is, I think it's in the second book or movie, when I think Malfoy says that they have like stuff under the drawing room, something like that. I can't remember exactly. That the ministry wasn't supposed to find out or whatever. It's like their secret hiding place for magical artifacts. And so that's what this room is supposed to represent. So I made that long kind of hallway, just so that like it's really, really secret. Obviously, in a magical world, people can kind of put enchantments on it or whatever to make it hidden, but you can't do that in the game, so I just made a long hallway to make it look like that. And then basically the way that I interpreted that to what I think that means is kind of stuff to kind of mess with muggles, because in the books and the movies they kind of talk about how lots of wizards will have like artifacts that are technically muggle like products that they kind of alter and change to make them magical, if that makes any sense, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. So I kind of just took random little objects like the fridge and a baseball bat and stuff like that, and I imagine that they would be kind of changed to become a magical item. So it looked kind of random, but that's where I was coming from, was that I thought it would be kind of just like a room where they would put all that old stuff that they've enchanted to kind of mess with muggles that they don't want the ministry to find. So again, you may disagree with that, but that's just what I thought that room could be. So now moving on from that little basement cellar, now we have moved on to the owlery. And as you can see, it's just a big kind of, a big tower. And like I said before, I just have these, like in the previous part, I just have these stairs kind of winding up that, you know, you would walk up to get to the owls. The owls would be on the top. And obviously we don't have pets yet, which I am somewhat upset about because I really want to make my pets in The Sims, but we don't have them yet, so we just kind of have to wait that out. Hopefully they do decide to do that. So we can't really have like any bird objects because we don't have birds, so I kind of just left it empty because I think it would be empty anyway. You might have like some owl feed and maybe some stuff to write letters with, but it wouldn't like have furniture or anything like that. You know, the owls would just kind of come in and out when they want to. So yeah, it's just kind of a tower, but that's what it's supposed to be, is an owlery for the owls, because of course the Malfoys would have their own owlery. So now we're just kind of adding some like outside decor. I can't remember if I decided to use any. Oh, I did. I decided to have some fireplace chimneys. That's what they're called. They're called chimneys. I wanted to put those little kind of spikes on the top, but they just weren't working, so I couldn't do that. And I can't remember if I kept in that little roof thing over the door. I guess I must have. I thought it looked kind of cool. But anyway, now we're doing the house elf rooms. And I think I only am going to show you guys one because they're all basically the same. Like I literally copied and pasted them. So they're really not that interesting to watch. But basically, these rooms, I just tried to make them look kind of like plain and grody, if that makes sense. And of course, the Malfoys would not allow each house elf to have their own room. They would have to share because the Malfoys are like that. So yeah, there's 3 beds to each room, I believe, and then each room has like a bathroom. And they're really plainly furnished. There's really not that much, there's really not that anything interesting about them. So yeah, they're just house elf rooms. Obviously there aren't any stairs to get up there because, like I said previously, the house elves can do magic themselves, so I think the Malfoys would just tell them like, oh, you have to apparate, you can't, like, you know, they just gotta figure it out. The Malfoys aren't gonna help them out with that. So obviously your Sims won't be able to get up here unless you add in some stairs, or if you have cheats on, you can always teleport as well. Although I don't really think anybody would want to put Sims up there. They're just kind of there for to match the plot line, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the build. I'll put up some screenshots in just a moment that you'll be able to see. I think I have a screenshot of every room. If not, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of the video. I really hope you like it. If you have any comments, concerns, or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. And I really hope I get to see you next time. Bye.